YouTube, this is Obscure Visions again, and today I'm going to do a video on Buddha. And when I say Buddha, I mean the historical Buddha, as in the Buddha that Buddhists actually venerate, not this jolly fat guy that you're probably picturing in your head, because they are in fact two different people. The chubby guy who occasionally holds coins or beads and you find like made out of wood and like all these different poses and such. He's actually the laughing Buddha. He is a Buddha, but he's not the Buddha. He's actually a monk, I believe, going by the name of Putai. And he's one of the 7 Japanese gods of Buddhism or something. Not quite sure about that. Again, I'm not a Buddhist, but I've studied it for a couple months now, and I gave a speech on it over the summer to my public speaking class. So I'm going to be referencing from my outline for that speech throughout this, just to give you a little information on the Buddha, whose name was Siddhartha Gautama, and maybe you'll learn something. Who knows? Anyway, Siddhartha Gautama was born in the 6th century BC in what is now modern-day Nepal. He was born into a royal family. His father was the ruler of his people, so you can imagine he had a pretty extravagant life. He got married at age 16 to this chick who was like really pretty and stuff, but his life he lived mostly in seclusion because his father, the king, didn't want him going out into the world and finding a job or becoming a monk or something, because he needed him to ascend him to the throne. And without his son, he had no successor, and thus he kept him secluded in the palace. Anyway, one day, Siddhartha actually went and ventured out into the city, where he was faced with something he had never seen before, which was the inevitable suffering of life. And from that point on, he was never the same. I mean, he saw people dying in the streets and poor and hungry, and he'd never seen things like that, at least not in person before. So it was just kind of a culture shock to him, realizing that he had led this extravagant life, but there were people out there who had absolutely nothing. So, the following day, at the age of 29, he left his royal life and his family behind to find a way to try and end the suffering of his people. Now, in all, Siddhartha spent about 6 years meditating and studying with various religious teachers before he finally reached enlightenment himself. His first teacher was Alara Kalama, and from this particular teacher he learned a form of meditation that brought him to a state without any moral or cognitive dimension. And he mastered this meditation, but he didn't really see how this would help him solve the problem of suffering. His next teacher, whose name I really can't pronounce, taught him another meditation, which led to a state of neither perception nor non-perception, but he came to the same conclusion with this one, that it wouldn't help him at all in solving universal suffering. So he tried extreme ascetic practices, which are basically really severe religious exercises that can kill you. Starvation, fasting, stuff like that. But he realized eventually that destroying his body would not lead him to any new insights, so he left asceticism. I really can't pronounce that. Anyway, finally, while in northern India, he sat beneath a bodhi tree, which is basically a tree with crazy body seeds on it, and he vowed that he would not get up again until he had discovered the true end to suffering. So he meditated until dawn, completely purified his mind, and finally found enlightenment, which earned him the title of Buddha, meaning awakened one. So Buddha is a title. It's not his name. Buddha is a title. Anyone can become a Buddha. There are multiple Buddhas, but Siddhartha Gautama is the central Buddha of the Buddhist religion. Now, when I say he found enlightenment, basically what that means is he discovered that our desires are the root of our suffering, and by eliminating these desires, we, in essence, eliminate our suffering. So for the rest of his life, he traveled all over northern India and taught others what he had discovered, eventually drawing thousands of followers. Now, some of the misconceptions that people have. I'll just tell you a little bit about how he is revered by Buddhists today. Buddhists do not worship him as a god, but rather as a mentor. Siddhartha never claimed he was a god, the child of a god, or anything even remotely like that. He was a human being who, in essence, perfected himself and who wanted to teach the world that they could do the same. There are different kinds of worship. People think that, oh, well, they worship Buddha, well, he must be a god. There are actually different kinds of worship. Worship of a god entails praise, offering, prayers, asking for favors, and that sort of thing. The god is seen as the supreme force of creation. Now, worship of the Buddha is basically showing respect to an admired teacher. Now, we all show respect to our mentors in different ways, whether it be standing when they enter a room, or shaking their hand, or addressing them with a specific title. Now, kneeling before an image of the Buddha is not idol worship. A lot of people have this misconception also. It's basically a way for Buddhists to envision the peace and love that they wish to achieve, hoping to manifest it within themselves. It is done out of admiration and gratitude for his teachings. So when you see a Buddhist kneeling before an image of the Buddha, they're not kneeling to worship a god, they are kneeling to venerate a mentor. And by looking at this image, usually you see him sitting cross-legged with his hands in a relaxed position with his eyes closed. It's basically them seeing that image and trying to manifest that peace and harmony in themselves. It's like, this is the analogy I use for my speech. It's like you're walking by and you see a penny heads up on the ground, and you kneel down and pick it up and put it in your pocket for good luck. Now, why did you just do that? Is the penny actually lucky? Are you actually going to get a little leprechaun following you around or something because you picked up a lucky penny and he's going to give you gold or something? No, doubt it. But you perceive this object as being lucky, and you are hoping for that luck to manifest within you as a result of being close to this penny. It's the same thing with Buddhists being near to an image or a statue or a likeness of Siddhartha Gautama, of the Buddha. They see his peacefulness, they see his harmony and the state that he has achieved representative in these statues and such, and they wish for it to also manifest within themselves. Basically, I hope that all of you will take from this a stronger understanding of what Buddhists decide to put their faith in, that there is no God in Buddhism. There is no central deity of creation that they believe in. Now, this is general Buddhism. I'm not specifying to Chinese Buddhism, Japanese Buddhism, Tibetan, or whatever. I'm sure that there are local deities associated with China, local deities associated with Japan, but honestly, that's truly separate from the actual main concept of Buddhism. So it could be a melding of local folklore with Buddhism, but Buddhism itself has no God. I hope that will give you a better understanding, and have a good day.